You think this will stop me from cooking?
Cook whatever you like, as long as it's that ridiculous chili pea or some other dreck. But don't even think about using my formula.
You just try and stop me.
The end of Better Call Saul is just a few episodes away, which means we're even closer to the return of Walter White and Jesse Pinkman. It was confirmed a while ago, but even before then it was just so expected. Walter White is such a big part of Saul's story because he was essentially the end of it. Heisenberg was the ultimate consequence to all of Jimmy's actions, from the path he chose when he transitioned into Saul, which would then end by being forced into his life of being Gene. So now that he's stepping into the boots of Saul again, Walter White and the events of Breaking Bad will continue to play a massive part in how he does that. So today, we're going to get to the bottom of how and when we're going to see Walt and Jesse in Better Call Saul. I don't think all of their scenes will be flashbacks or flash forwards. Let that sink in. Of course, before we get into it, make sure you press the subscribe button right now on the channel to be the first to see my videos. So first of all, to get this one out of the way, Walter White is likely, obviously dead. Now for years, people have speculated on how he could have survived, and I still think it's fun to do that even after El Camino when we react with Jesse to the radio announcement that does confirm Walt died at the shootout.
White, the former Albuquerque schoolteacher who was the subject of a 6-month international manhunt, was found dead late Tuesday.
Now, there is witness protection, and there was this weird comment by Bryan Cranston in this interview.
Walking around the perimeter within the wall of this.
Yes, right.
And just that was my exercise.
But how fun was that? It has to be
It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
You feel like you're in the witness protection program.
Yes,
you know?
Exactly.
With witness protection, and especially with how high profile Heisenberg had become, they would announce to the public that the person died to stop fear among the public and to show that the Heisenberg case is closed. Obviously, the only way this would ever happen is because Walter could provide the DEA with information on the business of his product. He would be a goldmine for them, and in return, they help his family out. So there is that really small chance that he is actually alive, or at least they could bring him back from what was a really definitive ending. Vince Gilligan has said many times now that Walter is just dead. He would say that, that's what you're meant to believe. That of course isn't something I'm saying out of hope or belief though. The most obvious ways these two characters could return is through flashback scenes or flash forward scenes. Bob Odenkirk and Bryan Cranston have both said that it's more than one scene that they appear in, so will likely take place at different points in the timeline of Breaking Bad, anywhere in between season 2 where Saul first meets Walt and Jesse and season 5 where he would last see Walter. While it is safe to assume that there is going to be more than one scene with these two characters and there is time to simply reminisce in older times in Breaking Bad, I think they've still been brought back for a purpose. With how each and every one of the actors and people involved in Better Call Saul have described its a semblance with Breaking Bad.
If you're a fan of Breaking Bad and you haven't seen Better Call Saul yet, you should catch up, because in our final season, the two shows, Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, are enmeshed like they've never been.
It doesn't sound like these scenes are just going to be a supplement to what's already great about Breaking Bad. It sounds like it's a missing piece to the puzzle that is Better Call Saul. They're simply imperative to how it continues, which means it won't just consist of fun flashbacks. It will simply just become a part of what Better Call Saul is, following Saul Goodman's story. This is where it ends up. And for it to become one with Breaking Bad, like the actors have said so much that it does, I think it involves Kim Wexler. Now, a lot has to happen from episode 7 and the end of the show for her to still have a part in Jimmy's life with how he is in Breaking Bad. We've got to assume, although she's driven away from him, she's not from the business side of it, which is what we saw she was even more headfirst into than he was comfortable with. It's her that still wanted to go after Howard, which then caused his death. If she wanted to be done with the crime, why would Jimmy remain and become even worse? I think it's very likely Kim was involved in the business side of things at the time of Breaking Bad. If that's the case, it's very likely there will be a scene of Jesse, Walt, Mike, Saul and Kim talking just like they did in Breaking Bad. But this of course is all debunked if before the events of Breaking Bad we see in Better Call Saul, she phones Ed the Disappearer and starts a new life. We've seen she of all people was made very aware of that possibility. If she has to go to to a new life and Saul stays, it would make sense that it all gets to him and becomes who he was. But I do think with the theme of season 6, the loss of purity and innocence, I think it's a bit more likely that she's consumed by the crime before Breaking Bad even starts. But with how we're being told these two shows combine and become one, what better way to do that than with the most loved, most popular, most alive Better Call Saul character. The second thing I think we could see from these two characters is what I like to call a current timeline cameo. We could just see Walt and Jesse living out in Albuquerque, how they did years before Breaking Bad. Walter worked at the car wash. The writers of Better Call Saul are really good and in fact stay loyal to answering to older scenes in Breaking Bad. Lalo and Ignacio were characters based from this scene alone.
No, it wasn't me, it was Ignacio, he's the one. Lalo didn't send you? No, Lalo.
Wasn't me, it was Ignacio. No.
I'm gonna come back. And then you are gonna tell me the whole story.
And then there's this scene.
Worked here for 4 years.
Wax on, wax off, was that you?
So just a short funny scene of Walter White washing Saul's new car at the car wash would be really cool. And lastly, I think one of the most important things that could happen in Better Call Saul is a reference to Jesse, and maybe even Jesse reuniting with Saul in the Gene timeline. Now firstly, I don't think Jesse will magically appear in Gene Cinnabon to cause some kind of spin-off show, but even with how conclusive El Camino was to Jesse's story, with how much closure it provided the character, it didn't provide all of that closure to the viewers, and the one big thing that it missed out on is even after all of the information we learn about Jesse's new life, his new identity.
What's your social security number?
We don't even find out his first name.
Mr. Driscoll.
The most common complaint and critique of El Camino that you will hear from people that weren't too keen on it is that it was unnecessary, that it didn't really need to happen. And to this day, even with how much I loved El Camino myself, because it's Jesse, I don't think Vince Gilligan would have even touched the ending of Breaking Bad with how perfect that was to make a movie if it wasn't going to go beyond that or be referenced in something else. Before we even got season 5 of Better Call Saul, instead, we got Jesse's movie confirming, setting in stone exactly where he ended up. We learned quite a lot about Jesse's new life and his new identity, but again, we still don't know his first name. So I think at the very least, in these remaining episodes of Better Call Saul, there will be some reference or mention of a Mr. Driscoll, maybe even a random mention of Jesse's new name, and we won't even know it. Something also to note, but not as inconspicuous as his first name not being revealed, is Jesse's letter to Brock was the first thing Vince Gilligan wrote of El Camino, and to this day, him and Aaron Paul are the only people in the world to know what it says, but Vince Gilligan isn't letting him reveal it. Aaron Paul actually said he hopes one day he can tell people what it said. Makes you think. Kim is obviously going to play a massive part in the ending of Better Call Saul, but when it comes to Gene, these black and white scenes are a product of what he did in Breaking Bad. We've seen these small breaks of Gene's character. He's paranoid, and we're seeing he's sick of running. He doesn't want to be Gene anymore. He's becoming Saul again. Fair enough, a great ending for his character is that he lives happily in his new life. He handles it himself. But if it does get to the point where he gets made again, if more people start to realize this is that lawyer on TV, it will become a mission about clearing his name. Sure, Kim could come in and be a lawyer for him. Maybe he can represent himself. But again, that comes to Breaking Bad. The only other person on the planet that knows about the events of Breaking Bad in that trio is Jesse Pinkman. It's interesting because we're seeing this a lot nowadays with the Kenobi show, with the Jon Snow series in development. These are all projects based on stories we thought were over. What do you think? How do you think Walter White and Jesse Pinkman will make their numerous appearances in Better Call Saul? And do you think that it's at all possible that there's some kind of reference to Jesse, or maybe even appearance in some way in the Gene timeline? Let me know what you think down below. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon.
From where I sit, you made your own luck, as did your former partner, as did your lawyer. Said it yourself. Deal's a deal.